So let's look at an example of slogan building and brand creation and brand identity when it comes to country branding image, which is an area of research and theory. When I say country, it really means any tourism destination, but we're going to look at some city examples. You could do state or you could do country itself. So when we're looking at country branding image and we're looking at something like slogans, and we compare Botswana, opportunity and tranquility, to Kenya, the magic of Africa, South Africa, it's possible. They have some really cool commercials. Tanzania, which is the land of Kilimanjaro and Zanzibar, to something like a city, Las Vegas. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. In Costa Rica, no artificial ingredients. So let's talk about Las Vegas really quickly. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas is an incredibly unique and strong brand slogan. This is probably one of the best out there because it paints this image that you can go and let loose and have fun and have no one judge you, and it doesn't matter what decisions you make, it all stays behind, which is not really true, but people do it anyway. And that you can go and have fun and let loose, and who cares about responsibilities? They'll be there when you get back. No one is going to talk about what you did. You're just going to leave and have a good time. So this was a really strong shift in their campaign. It used to be, Las Vegas is Sin City, was kind of the mentality behind it. It was shady, it was dark, it was overrun by mob bosses, there was a lot of crime, just not a really good place to be. And Las Vegas was able to turn that around, and part of that was through this marketing campaign of what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So it's a really, really strong campaign that is still around now and still going strong. So let's look at another very specific example, and we're gonna look at Zambia. So what happened is the original brand slogan was "The Real Africa." And for them, it meant something really great. It meant we're authentic, we are going to provide you a true experience of being in Africa, it's going to be great. But unfortunately, when researchers were testing how the real Africa was coming across to European travelers, which were the majority of people who were coming, they were high-end, wealthy, from Europe, looking for very specific things. They saw something like the real Africa, and the first images that came to mind, unfortunately, were things like welfare, disease, poverty, and crime. Okay, so if your slogan to your core segment is not painting the image or the perception that you're looking for, this is an example of how the branding image has to fit that core target market, because they're the ones who are determining whether or not they're purchasing your product. So after doing some research and going through this process of coming up with a new slogan, because they figured out, they went through a brand audit, they went through the brand creation, and what they found out, or the brand development, what they found out is, okay, we want to show that we're less expensive than the competition, that we have wildlife, we have beautiful landscapes and scenery, we also have access to Victoria Falls, that we're this fantastic country that people should come to. We speak English, we're friendly, we're safe. There's not a lot of crime here, and we want people to come to Zambia. And it's a great alternative to some of the more well-known countries. And so they came up with the slogan, "Let's explore." This idea that you aren't really familiar with us, but come with us, let's go together. It's this unity. We can talk about safari and Victoria Falls and wildlife and these expeditions. And it was much more compatible with the image that they were trying to provide through their audit, and then eventually that development into Let's Explore. And so now I want to show you a couple of different videos looking at branding image and branding slogans through commercials, similar to what we did in chapters 13 and 14, but now we're looking at branding images.
Don't worry over. The clouds bring the rain. It's time to start over. Time to join in. The sun slowly rising, shining on earth. The sky open-minded today. I feel the life that I want to come to me.
Kosovo, the young Europeans.
Okay, so what's interesting about this commercial. Of course, their slogan is the Young Europeans, as it actually spells a lot of information about Kosovo. Now, this might be targeting more towards other European countries than to us, because you're probably watching this and maybe you do or don't know the history of Kosovo, but they're actually not recognized as a sovereign nation by the UN. They just came out of a very serious internal civil war, much like Bosnia did. There's a lot of division there, there's a lot of fear, there was a lot of warfare, and through this campaign what they're actually trying to show the rest of Europe is that they're coming back together. There's a unity, there's a youngness to it, there's a strength in it and a beauty, and that there's peace and serenity, and coming here you can be part of that experience. And so I think this imagery together with this idea of young Europeans, of this rebirth, is a very beautiful thing. And so it's going to appeal to a very specific kind of customer. So I want you to think to yourself whether or not this really appeals to you, and what this says about maybe where you fit into their segmentation of whether or not you're part of that. So let's look at another example.
This is Romania, the only country in the world where women have the legal right to marry 4 men at the same time.
Discover Romania, the country where people are riding zebras.
Come to Romania and taste the fish flute.
You know nothing about Romania, do you? It's time to come and discover it. Real sights, real experiences, real people.
Fish feast.
Okay, so in the video about Romania, very different than Kosovo, obviously. It was about adventure, excitement, trying new things, oddities, riding zebras, marrying multiple people, fish growing on trees, laughter, camaraderie, having a good time, kind of this land of choice was their slogan. So you can see that their segmentation is very different. They're looking probably for a younger crowd that's looking for this excitement and adventure and kind of being wild and crazy. Very similar concept to the Las Vegas concept of what happens here stays here. Land of choice, saying that you have a choice to come here, but we also have a series of choices while you're here. So let's look at one more. There are 5 here that you can watch. I want to show you one more that's very different than either of those and kind of go through that with you.
Everything I've wanted, all that I've asked of you, everything I've dreamed of is all coming true. So stay with me as we walk hand in hand. My life is truly Asia, the mountains and the sea. My life is truly Asia, calling out to you and me. My life is truly Asia.
Okay, so Malaysia, truly Asia. Very interesting. You see a lot of families, relaxations, spas, beautiful landscapes, but also cities. You see some traditionally Asian things, some traditional Asian clothes and buildings and architecture. Their slogan is Malaysia, truly Asia. So it's kind of pointing to this idea that when people think of traveling to Asia, they don't think of Malaysia, but we are that. We have all those things, but we also have this peace, this serenity. We're good for families, we're good for couples, we're comfortable, we're beautiful, and that this is a great place to go. So I lied, I want to do one more because the next one I think is my favorite. So let's watch one more, and the 5th one you can watch on your own. my absolute favorite one. Maybe it's because I just love the idea of going to Korea and I really want to go, so maybe I am their target market. But I love how it's this mix, this juxtaposition between traditional views of Korea and the new modern Korea kind of coming hand in hand, and that there's this kind of a unity between old and new within Korea. You see the very old gentleman riding on the train watching soccer, and you see the dancing in the nightclubs, but you also see the traditional views of the water and the landscapes, and you kind of see them all juxtaposition, showing that there's so much more to Korea than probably you realize. There's been a vast change in the landscape, but they haven't lost their old tradition. Now, the slogan of sparkling, probably not the strongest brand slogan, because it doesn't really say a lot. It doesn't really point to image, and I think it's a juxtaposition between this beautiful commercial that they have. And so I think maybe the work needs to be a little bit more on the slogan, and this the video is great, but the slogan's not so great. So you guys can watch the 5th one, which is about Croatia. And since you'll be doing your own discussion board about videos like these, you'll have many more opportunities to look up your own country branding images, city branding images, whatever you want to look up. And I hope you guys will enjoy the discussion board that we'll be doing.